Rogers trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Pod Street Blues Podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the post-Gove edition of the Pod Street Prospects. I'm John, and I'm here with my boy, Hoagie. Hoagie, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, yo?
Living the dream, my friend. Living the dream.
Friday Eve, you gotta love it.
I know, half day tomorrow. I got to go to a wedding.
Lucky you.
Friday weddings, man, I'm not really sure how I feel about them.
I don't think I've ever been to a Friday wedding, to be honest with you.
I think it's the new thing. I feel like I've gone to more in the past 2 years than I've ever even heard of.
It's crazy.
Went to a Sunday wedding before, too. That was a little strange.
That's because they're cheaper.
Yeah, is that what it is? I mean, if that was the case, I would have got married on a Tuesday.
That's really unheard of.
Right? A little Tuesday wedding. Figure the rates are probably pretty good for a Tuesday wedding.
I think that's just called the courthouse at that point.
Well, there's always next time, right?
True.
All right, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Pod Street Marriage is for Derek and Casey's show, if you will.
Yeah.
We are here to talk a little about the kids, right? So the way we've kind of decided we're going to break this down is we'll talk a little bit about the prospects who are at the NHL level. Then we'll talk a little bit about Lehigh Valley. I mean, there's some very small sample size in Lehigh Valley. And then we're going to go elsewhere for two other players, and we'll talk about who those players are going to be when it's time. First, we'll start with the big club. It's kind of an interesting conversation, right? Because when you're talking about the kids, there are some kids that we're not even going to put in this prospect conversation, right? I don't think we want to talk about Morgan Frost for a few reasons.
I just included them down in the banner just because.
Right, but and I see Wade Allison, but to me, he's not a fringe player, right? This isn't somebody who's going to prove a point. I think that when healthy, both of those players are NHL players on this roster. So I think we kind of just leave them. But there are a few others. In my mind, I think there's one positive and maybe two not so positives, but I am going to kick it to you first because you know how much I love to talk.
Right. I mean, I'm going to kick it off with Igor Zamula. He's in the lineup. I'm not really a big fan of seeing him in the lineup. He looks a little lost out there.
Right.
I don't know. We've had the conversation. He needs to fill out. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. And I just don't think he's done any of it to be deserving of an NHL lineup spot.
Big time error last night too.
Right. I think I know it's a small sample size with 4 games in, but I mean, we saw enough of it in the preseason. We're seeing it now in the regular season. I don't think he's going to stick. I think we're going to eventually move on, especially if Risto somehow, whenever he gets healthy. But I think when Risto gets back into the lineup, Samoa, I think, is kind of going to drop down back to the Lehigh Valley.
And the way I look at it too is when you're looking at a lot of the young players or even just some of these older role players on the Flyers, you're looking at a lot of players that fit the same mold, that all kind of can slot into a similar role. So to me, right, it's like, what are you doing to stand out amongst the crowd, right? And I mean that in a positive way, right? Because you could stand out negatively. But even when, if you're playing just plain average, I still want to slot somebody else in to see if they can give me more than that. And I feel like whenever Zamula is standing out, it isn't in a positive light. Like, I don't I don't think he's been terrible, but I just don't think he belongs.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't have. I don't even want to call it hockey sense. He's not there with the play all the time.
Right.
He's not keeping up with everybody else.
Right. I mean, and maybe there's something to be said about his partner, right? Maybe a younger kid should be put with a more reliable partner. And no knock on Nick Seeler. I think for the most part, he's been all right.
Yeah.
But like, you almost wonder if they decide to bring down Cam York and Ronnie Adder because they see more promise in Zamula. And it's like, okay, well, Zamula can be our kid on the defense that we give a shot to right now, mainly because we're not as invested. He doesn't need to get more of that time at the AHL level the way we want a Cam York or a Ronnie Adder to.
Right.
But I'm with you. I think once Ristolainen is healthy, you send him down. I mean, I'm also wondering too, like, if Ristolainen is going to, I mean, who knows when he's coming back. If he's not coming back sometime soon, maybe you do look for an alternate option.
Right. Who knows what that could be at this point.
Right. I mean, and to kind of stick on the with the theme of like people who I've kind of been underwhelmed by, I would say Tanner Laczynski also fits that role too.
I didn't even have him in the banner here because he's been scratched lately, right?
No, he's played every game, but the first game against the Devils, he played 12 minutes. A little slightly over 12 minutes. Then the second game, he plays 11 minutes and 16 seconds. Tampa Bay, 9 minutes and 13 seconds. Are you sensing a trend here?
Yep.
Florida, 7 minutes and 26 seconds. Right? I mean, that is a drastic decline. 12 minutes game one to the fourth game of the season, you're now playing 7.
Yeah, so by Saturday he'll be playing 5, and by Sunday he'll be back in Lehigh Valley.
Well, I almost feel like whenever that guy that they claimed on waivers is ready to go,
cleared, right,
then that's when they'll send Laczynski down.
Yep.
And I've already said it, right? When you have so many people who can fill that role in an average enough way, you have to do something that stands out, and it's not happening.
Right. And I mean, everybody kind of saw that coming. Like when we picked up that, I forget his name off the top of my head, but when we picked him up, he's like, "Oh, he's a Torts player."
Yep.
Well, that Torts player is going to be slotted right into a lineup because I'm sure Torts was talking to Chuck Fletcher's head like, "That's my guy. That's who we need."
Right.
And the guys that are in the lineup aren't doing what I'm asking them to do. We already saw it with Hayden Hodgson, right?
Right.
Saw it with Lixell. They're not cutting it.
Right.
They're getting dropped pretty quick.
Well, and I think too, it's got to be hard to be a young kid, and I don't want somebody to spin my words around and be like, "Oh, Torts doesn't like the young kids." I don't mean it like that, but like the demand is high,
Yep.
right? There really is very little opportunity for you to ease into things with Tortorella, right? I mean, especially when the team is surprisingly winning.
Right.
If you're not playing your part, he's not going to wait around for you to find your feet.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you're young and you're getting limited minutes as a fourth liner does. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a young promising prospect or you're a career fourth liner. You're getting those limited minutes as a fourth liner.
Right.
And to get that and to, get a couple shifts a period, like you need to be ready when it's your shift. Like
right.
Even if you're sitting on the bench for 5 minutes, your next shift, you need to be ready. You need to pound it out for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, however long, and get off the ice. You need to give it 120%, not 110, 120, and prove that you're here to do your job.
Right.
And these kids aren't doing it for Torts.
Well, and it's likely, right, that someone like Laczynski, his ceiling is the fourth line, and Tortorella's looking at it going, well, if he's not showing me signs right now, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yep. And we've all mentioned it. If these kids are only playing fourth line minutes, there's no reason for them to be up here. That's why a lot of these kids aren't coming up from Lehigh Valley.
Right.
Like who's the guy that Derek always wants?
Elliot Thornton,
No, the other one. what's his freaking name? It's
Tyson Forrester.
Tyson Forrester. Thank you. Yeah, it was right there on the tip of my tongue. He has no expanded role in this lineup except for a fourth liner right now.
Right.
There's no sense in him coming up and playing if he's playing fourth line minutes.
I am curious, and I think that we should move away from Tanner Lashinsky because we've already dedicated way too much time to him. But I am curious to see when he is sent down, if he does really get another shot or if he kind of falls to the bottom of the line.
Sure.
Because, there again, like we've said, there are so many other players who can you can give them that opportunity to see if they play any better. But there was, I think, one other player I wanted to talk about that was more of a positive. Noah Cates.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
impressed.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he scores that game-winning goal against Tampa Bay, but just everything about this kid just screams, I want to lay it all out on the ice every shift.
Exactly, and that's what Torts is asking of these guys.
Right.
And that game-winning goal, I thought it was Morgan Frost, to be honest. I just saw the 40 and
right,
and kind of that, and then I noticed who it was, and I was like, "That's electric. That's going to be so good for his game."
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's a smart hockey player. He works hard. He's kind of everything that you want. Is he going to still have his bumps and bruises? Sure, but we're expecting that this season.
Yep.
But as far as standing out, I certainly think that he is.
Yeah, and a lot of people have compared his play to Mike Richards lately, especially that game-winning goal.
Right.
Sign
me up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. We need another Richards-esque type of player that's nose to the wheel and just keeps on grinding.
Right. But I mean, was there anybody else? The only other one I can think of really is Felix Sandstrom. Played his first game.
One game. I mean, you could definitely. I'm not putting too much into it because it was the second half of back-to-back.
Right.
Team looked tired.
One bad goal. I think there was one goal that it was like the third or the fourth one. I can't remember which one, but there was one where he should have had. But
yeah, a lot of them were just dirty.
Right.
He had no chance.
I think he'll be fine enough.
He's a backup. He'll probably see 30 games.
Yeah.
If that.
All right, so we'll move on to the AHL. Now, Lehigh Valley Phantoms have played 2 games last weekend. They're both on the road. They beat the Baby Penguins in overtime 3-2. They lost to Hershey on Sunday 2-1. I think full disclosure, me and Hoagie will both admit that although we had intentions of watching these games, 6:00 in the evening start on Saturday and 3:00 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Something like that.
Tough to sit down. So we've done our research, we've done our homework, but we didn't actually get to sit and watch these games. So to me, in terms of the young players, right, that stood out, I mean, I think Elliot Denoye is kind of at the top of the list.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just on his breakaway goal.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Right.
The way that he was able to separate himself from the pack. He started behind everybody. Excuse me. And still was able to beat the defenseman to the puck and score. That speed boost was incredible.
Right. And I think, for me personally, that's what I wanted to see because I wasn't sure that aspect of his game would translate to the professional level.
Right.
I mean, and again, we'll say this probably for the next month, small sample size. But it was nice to see oh, okay, wow, he can do that at the next level.
Yep. I think seeing him maybe do it in the NHL level is to be determined, but if he could do that there, I'd be even more excited for the kid. I know there's a lot of hype around Elliot Denoye, but he's looking pretty good so far.
Right. And I mean, you have to wonder, Hoagie's over there dying, but you have to wonder, if there's so much instability on that bottom six, if he continues to play well. And again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you wonder when Philadelphia would give him an opportunity.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, 2 goals in the first 2 games. I mean, he'll be a goal per game type of player, right? That's what everybody screams for.
Right, especially when the rest of the team's not producing much offense.
Right.
It seems like. I mean, Cam York got an assist. Tyson Forrester got an assist.
Yep.
And Samuel Urson ended up not having to back up Carter Hart because Felix Sandstrom was ready to go, went down and had a pretty good game on Sunday, just letting in 2 goals.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're getting a loss.
And both of those goals were he couldn't do anything about.
Right.
Screens in front and like butts in his face type of plays. Like he couldn't see the puck.
Right. I'm really excited to see, what he becomes this year because I do think that he had a pretty good preseason in training camp. I was a little nervous about him having to play the backup role right away. So I was happy to see that Sandstrom was healthy enough so Orson could go back down and kind of like be the guy in Lehigh Valley.
Right.
But I really am excited because I do think that like after his injury struggles in the past, he is looking like he's ready.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping we'd see him in the NHL right away if Sandstrom wasn't
right. Well, we were going to.
Right, but I mean, just based off of his preseason play, I thought he was ready for the NHL because he looked really, really good in preseason. But I mean, I'm glad he's going to be getting more starts in the AHL and getting that experience under him because he'll need that going forward.
Right. I mean, the way I look at it too is that, especially when you're talking about a young kid's first start, you're gonna put him against the Florida Panthers,
or the Tampa Bay Lightning,
right? One of the more high octane offenses. I'm just kind of glad. Like Felix Sandstrom is barely much more experienced than he is.
Exactly.
But no, I mean. Any other notes? I mean, I apologize that we're not quite full blown Lehigh Valley yet, but
I mean, you said Cam York, his assist was on the power play.
Yep.
From the point. I'm glad he's being that quarterback of the power play at the point,
right?
Which we thought he was going to be doing in Philadelphia on the second power play. So I'm glad LePerrier has given him that role and responsibility on the Phantoms to kind of prepare him for the NHL going forward. So, and I think he's on to kind of prove Tortorella wrong that he's ready for the next step and he's going to keep working towards it.
Yeah, I don't give him too long, especially if Ristolainen continues to have health struggles, right? I mean,
yep.
When we're talking about replacing Zamula, who do you really replace him with? I still cannot get behind the idea of bringing up Ronnie Adder before you bring up Cam York.
Tortorella can apparently.
I know, but that's just because I haven't sat down and talked with him yet.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, I think that kind of covers the AHL right now. I think they've got 2 more games this weekend. I believe they're at home.
Yeah, it's opening weekend at home. They have back-to-back with Cleveland, 7:00 and at 3:00.
Cleveland Monsters. If that's not an AHL team name, I don't know what is.
Right? It's the
Monsters.
Gotta love it.
Are there a lot of monsters in Cleveland?
You never know.
I guess it depends on what kind you're looking for.
It's Ohio, so you never know.
Oh man. All right. So let's move on to the elsewhere. So we've got the pretty and we got the ugly. What do we want to start with? Do we want to start the pretty or the ugly?
Let's go with the ugly first.
We'll go ugly. We'll end the show on a high note.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Yeah. So the way Hoagie and I are going to do this, we picked 2 players kind of from the other leagues within the farm system. We're probably going to highlight 2 a week, unless there's a reason for more. We're going to try to get 1 good, 1 bad. So today we're going to start with probably the biggest bad to this point, unfortunately, and that's the Flyers 2021 second round pick, Samu Tuomaala. Essentially the Flyers' first round pick in that draft because they didn't have a first round pick. And some people get excited and go, oh, I think they got a first round talent in the second round. I might even said that once or twice. But not off to a good start. He is in Finland. He was set to play in the Liga, which is Finland's professional league. Not to be confused with the popular soccer league, because every time I type in Liga, I wind up on some soccer page. But he was barely registering minutes there.
Wasn't his average time on ice like 7 minutes?
Well, it was because he played like 5 minutes one game. It was like mainly 9, and then he had one like real brutal, one really brutal game. And then I know they put him with the U20 team for a little bit, but now he's just in the Mestis. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's like the lower league. He's been demoted. It's not looking good. I mean, even comments from well-known national prospect writers was that Scott Wheeler.
Yes.
Pretty much was just like, the dude looks lost.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to get a few comments from Alex Appleyard, and he was just like, his IQ is pretty awful. That's not quote. That's not exactly what he said, but he was just like saying, he just can't, he's not at that level. He has a lot to work on in terms of hockey sense. What the heck, man?
What the heck is right? I mean, he started off pretty well with the new league where he's at. I don't even know. I don't even want to try to pronounce it.
Yeah.
He's got a goal and assist in 2 games. It's helpful to see that, at least. Like, hopefully he'll find his game again.
Sure.
But I mean, when he was younger, playing in U18s, U20s, U16s, his numbers were nasty.
Yeah.
And like, what happened? Is it because he came over to North America for a season? What is going on with this kid?
Well, one of the things that I always go back to in this particular situation was when he was drafted, right? He played a few games in Lehigh Valley to start, or at least he was a part of the roster. He was mainly a healthy scratch. Right. And there was a lot of conversation on where he would be sent to next. There was the possibility of going back to Finland and trying to play pro, but they also had the opportunity to send him to the CHL. I can't remember. I think it was the OHL, but I'm not 100% sure, where he could play in the Canadian juniors. For me, personally, I was like, the Canadian juniors makes the most sense because he can play a lot of minutes, right? He can continue to develop his game in North America. I just felt like professional was going to throw him to the Wolves. Right. Now, whether it was the Flyers' decision or the players' decision, which I think I've heard a few times that he was very adamant on wanting to be able to play pro. They went to Finland, and he just cannot hang.
Right.
And if he can't hang in the Liga, which is a very respectable league, what do we think is going to happen here?
Hopefully it doesn't, go by the wayside when we waste technically a first-round pick.
Yeah. I just look at it like this. I mean, I think that like a player's path of development is so important, right? You've seen so many times with the Edmonton Oilers of the past, or the Buffalo Sabres, where they put these players in positions they're not quite ready for, and they never become what you expect.
Right.
Now, obviously, Tuomaala is very different, right? Because he was never a first overall pick. He was never somebody who was in that conversation. But like, if you put a young player in a situation where they start to fail, it can really have long-term effects. And I think right now, Tuomaala is in this position where it's like, well, we can't put him in pros because he's not good enough there, but he can't be here because he's too good here. And it's a mess in my mind.
Yeah, you're screwing with the player's confidence at that point.
Right.
Like, if you're saying you're too good for this league, but you're not good enough for this league, you need to find that middle ground where they'll stand out, but they'll stand out in a positive way.
Right.
That he played 2 games with the Phantoms last year, and that was mainly because of COVID stuff, right? If I'm not wrong.
Right. I mean, when he remained with the Phantoms, everybody was like, well, why isn't this guy making cracking the roster? Right. He was continuing to be a healthy scratch.
I don't get it. I that's definitely got to screw with your mindset too. If you're not able to even play in the AHL, right?
He's just not ready. That's the problem, right? He wasn't ready for it. And then you go and you just push him into this professional setting that he's not ready for.
Right.
And then look what happens, right? And now you've sent him down, and it's got to be demoralizing. at
it
this
definitely
point.
is.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the kid. I'm hoping where he's at now, he's able to regain his confidence, regain his game, and just continue to tear it up. And hopefully, we'll see him over here in the orange and black eventually.
Right.
Maybe not with the Flyers, maybe just with the Phantoms eventually, but something's got to give, and this kid's got to kind of figure it out. Because I'm even if it's on the Flyers or if it's on him, like you hate seeing the confidence take a blow.
Right. I mean, I think I would assume his age gets him out of the CHL for next year, but I feel like the Flyers have to bring him closer,
Absolutely,
and be able to kind of be a little bit more like hands-on with his development if they want any opportunity for him to kind of turn things around. Because right now it's not looking good.
right. And some people would argue keep him away from the Flyers' development because lately it hasn't been all that great. But I mean, his development's already to the wayside. You got to reel it in some way.
Right. Right. I mean, and if he's turned into such a project, you might as well continue this project on the ice he's going to play on.
Exactly.
That's my thought. But let's flip the script a little bit. Let's talk about something positive. Gavin Hain, North Dakota, decided to use his extra year of eligibility to go back this season, which means he is still a part of Flyers control, right? They still can sign him after this season.
Mm-hmm.
4 goals in 4 games. A scoring side that I don't know if you've ever watched him play. I've never seen from this kid. He was a new prospect when I kind of first started getting into the prospects
Right.
in the Flyers system, and was never an offensive player. I think he had every other skill, solid, just two-way guy. Yeah, just what we need. But before this season, his season career high was 6 goals in a season, and he's already up to 4.
Yep. So last season he had six goals, 3 assists, 9 points in 18 games. Season got
injured.
Short. Yep. Season got cut short with a knee injury. Had knee surgery, and he's picking up where he left off from last season because right before the injury he had 4 goals in 5 games.
Right.
So, and the goals that he's scoring are actually pretty good goals.
Yeah.
Like he's going to the net. He's driving the play. He's a good skater.
There's skill involved. I mean,
yeah.
you can't argue. It's not, and they're not like dirty goals. Like there is some serious talent and skill on display.
He's a big kid. He's 6 foot, like 295 or something like that. Like he is solid.
Right.
He's not the prettiest guy around, but he's solid.
Gavin's typically pretty. I don't know. That's not a name I typically associate with a pretty dude. No offense to any Gavin who's listening right now. I apologize.
Yeah, but I mean, the scoring touches there this season. I'm kind of excited to see him take off because I mean he played nationally ranked Quinnipiac already, and scored against them.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing too that I like to kind of provide who he's scoring against. Now he did score against Quinnipiac, but he also scored 3 goals against Holy Cross.
Right.
Which not a nationally ranked team. Is a team that North Dakota should win.
Yep. But I mean, scoring against Quinnipiac, they're ranked what, top 3?
Yeah, I think they were ranked 6th when they played. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I know they're top 10. They kind of came out of nowhere over the past couple of seasons because my sister-in-law went to Quinnipiac, and when she was there, they were good, and then everybody got drafted and went to the NHL, and they were bad for a couple of years. Right. So now they kind of just exploded out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, North Dakota couldn't get a win out of them this weekend. They tied the first game, and then they lost the second game.
Yeah.
But there are, a few things that we need to think about, right? Gavin Hain, again, is in his 5th season with North Dakota.
Super senior, baby.
He is 22 years old. So I was really interested about the age thing, right? I was like, is he really like, I think one of the narratives that I can get lost in is going, okay, well, he's playing against a bunch of people who are much younger than him, right? He should dominate. So I was a little bit interested in just like average ages on NCAA teams.
Ooh, hit me with it.
So North Dakota's is 21 1/3. So
He's that third.
Yeah.
He's that third bringing him up.
But the oldest team in the NCAA is Mercyhurst, and their average age is 22.63.
Ooh.
Which, when I was looking at the older team, like most of the older teams that were in that average of like 22, they were teams that you typically don't hear in like the national championship conversation, right? These are a lot of like grad transfer players that want to get one more year in.
Yeah, these are kids just wanting to play some more.
The youngest team, Michigan, at 20 and a third. So he's not like he's not that much older. I mean,
he's not. You're thinking, college kids, they're 18, 19 years old.
Right.
Some of these kids that are 18, 19 years old aren't making these teams right off the bat.
Right. Or they have limited roles.
Right. They have limited roles. I mean, some 18, 19-year-olds are still playing some juniors before they go to the NCAA. Every once in a while. Not always, but every once in a while. But, I mean, he's still playing against kids his age. Like, he's not like, a 30-year-old playing 25-year-olds. Like, he's just got more experience at this point. And
we're talking about North Dakota here. Like, if you can be an impact player for the University of North Dakota, like, that's a good sign. This is one of the more premier programs in college hockey. Yep. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Yep, thanks to our good old boy Dave Axtell.
But so I went from literally not caring at all about this player to start the season to legitimately intrigued to see what he can do, because I have talked with a few people throughout the years, and they do say, like, aside from the scoring touch, right, he has everything else to make him a legit NHLer, right, with a clear ceiling. But he's smart, he's defensively responsible, he's even offensively responsible. He just can't put the puck in the back of the net very often. But now, now all of a sudden he's got this newfound skill where he is able to score. It's a different ballgame.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I can't see a world where if he has a successful season this year, the Flyers don't sign him.
I mean, if he's potting a bunch of goals and leading UND to at least some type of noise during Frozen Four time,
right?
You gotta give him an ELC of some sort, I would imagine.
Right.
I don't see him automatically cracking the NHL lineup.
No,
because of where we're at. But I mean, he'd be nice to have to stow away for a rainy day.
Yeah, rainy day, Gavin. Rainy day, Hain. The rain on Hain falls mainly on the plain. Day. There you go. All right, but okay. So that's our prospect talk for the week, man. What do you think?
It's so good to finally talk hockey.
It is. I mean, and
have hockey on.
And you can really just watch any league now. Like, it's all over the place. It's beautiful. I love it.
I've missed it so much. I'll give you that.
Right, for sure. All right, brother. Well, do you want to just give them the whole spiel about where they can find us all and all that crud?
You can find John and I at Pod Street Boys, Pod ST Boys. Find John at Pod Street Gove. I'm at Pod Street Hoags. You know where to find us on the receptacles. If you can't, Google it.
All right, brother. Till next time. Bye now.
Bye now.